Hello. Finally, I think I got my schedule all organized. I finished a few things that I needed to finish, so now this should be uploaded on the day it should. Everything got a bit delayed, so yeah. Sorry about that. But yeah, let's read some books, shall we?
Might consider joining up myself.
Oh yeah, and completely forgot about this. Textures are acting up for some reason, so yeah. Skyrim, always working correctly, as it should. So, the Rerum Dirennis by Rerum Dirennis. I just started and a motorcycle is already passing by, come on. I am 611 years old. I have never had children of my own, but I have many nieces and nephews and cousins who have been raised with the tales and traditions of our ancient, illustrious, and occasionally notorious clan, the Dirennis. Few families in Tamriel can boast so many famous figures, wielding so much power over the fate of so many. Our warriors and kings are stuff of legend, and it is not to dismiss their honor and their achievements to say that they have heard quite enough about them. I myself have never picked up a sword or written an important law, but I am part of a lesser known but still important Dirennis tradition, the way of the wizard. My own autobiography would be of little interest to posterity, though my nephew, nieces, and cousins indulge me to tell wild tales of life in the chaotic second era of Tamriel. But I have a few ancestors whose stories should be told. They may have changed history as we know it as dramatically as my better-known relatives, but their names are in danger of being forgotten. Most recently, Lysandus, the king of Daggerfall, was able to conquer his ancient enemies of Sentinel in part thanks to his court sorceress, Medora Dirennis. Her grandfather, Rerum Dirennis, was imperial battle mage to the court of the Dunmer Empress of Tamriel, Kataria, assisting her in creating peace in a time of turmoil. His great-great-grandfather, Adabal-A, had a similar role with the first Pontetate and encouraged the Guild Act, without which we would not have all the professional organizations we have today. His ancestor, many times back, was the witch Rerum Dirennis, who with her better-known cousins, Ivan and Rian, brought an end to the tyranny of the later Alesian Empire. Before the Sigils of Arteum, it is said, she created the art of enchantment, learning how to bind a soul into a gem and use that to ensorcel all matters of weaponry. But it is a story of an ancestor even more ancient, more distant than Raven, I wish to tell. Adabal Dirennis harkens back to the humble beginnings of our clan, in the tiny farming village of Tirigel, on the banks of the river Caumus, which was then called the Diren, hence the family name. Like all on Somerset Isle, in those days he was a simple planter on the fields, but while others only grew enough to sustain their immediate king, even distant cousins of the Dirennis worked together. They would decide as a group which fields were best for wheat, orchard, vine, livestock, or apiary, and thereby always have the best yields of any farm which worked alone, doing the best as it could with what it had. Adabal had a particularly poor farm for most kind of agriculture, but small herbs found its stony, loamless, acidic soil very comfortable. Out of necessity more than anything else, he became an expert on all matters of herbs. For the most part, of course, they were used in flavoring cooking, but as you know, hardly any plant grows on the surface of our world without a magical potential. Even so long ago, witches already were in existence. It would be ridiculous for me to suggest that Rerum Dirennis invented alchemy. What he did, what we can all be grateful for, is that he formulated it into an art and science. There were no witches' covens in Tyrigel, and of course there would be no mages guild yet for thousands of years. So people will come to him for cures. He learned for himself the exact formula for combining black lichen and rooibrush to create a cure for all manners of poison, and the amount of willow anther to crush and mix with chokeweed to cure diseases. There were few much greater threats in Tyrigel in those peaceful days than disease or accidental poisonings. Yes, there were some dark forces in the wilderness. Trolls, chimera, the occasional malevolent fairy folk, and will-o'-the-wisp. But even the youngest, most foolish Altmer knew how to avoid them. There were, however, a few unusual threats which Asliel had a hand in defeating. One of the tales told of him, that I believe to be true, is how he was brought a young niece who had been suffering from an unknown disease. Despite his ministrations, she grew weaker and weaker every morning. Finally, he gave her a bitter-tasting drink, and the next morning, ashes were found all around her bed. A vampire had been feeding on the poor girl, but Asliel's potion had turned her very blood into poison without harming her in the least. If only this formula had not been lost in the mists of history. This would have been enough to make him a minor but significant figure in the annals of early Somerset, but at that point in history, a barbarian tribe called the Lokvar had found their way down the Tyron River and recognized Tyrigel as a rich target for raids. The Dirennis, not being warriors yet, but simple farmers, were helpless and could only flee and watch. The Lokvar take the best of their crops, raid after raid. Asliel, however, had been experimented with the vampire dust and brought his cousins to him with a plan. The next time the Lokvar were sighted in Diren, the word went out and all the most able-bodied came to Asliel's laboratory. When the barbarians arrived in Tyrigel, they found the farms deserted and assumed that all had fled as usual. As they set about stealing the bounty, they suddenly found themselves under attack by invisible forces. Believing the Dirennis farms to be haunted, they ran away very quickly. They attempted a few more raids, but for their greed would always eventually overpower their fear, and each time they were sent upon by attackers who they could not see. As barbaric as they were not stupid, and they changed their mind about the source of their defeat. It could not be that the farms were haunted, because the crops were still being tended and harvested, and the animals seemed to show no fear. The Lokvar decided to send a scout to the farm to see if he could spy their secrets. The scouts sent word back to the Lokvar that the Dirennis farms were populated with flesh and blood, entirely visible Altmer. He continued to watch as his barbarian cohorts moved down the river, and he saw the elderly and children flee for the hills, while the able-bodied farmers and their wives went to Asliel's laboratory. He saw them go in. He saw no one come out. As usual, the Lokvar were repelled by invisible forces. But their scout soon told them what he saw happening in the laboratory. The next night, two of the Lokvar approached Asliel's farm very stealthily and managed to kidnap him without alerting the rest of the Dirennis. The Lokvar chieftain, knowing that the farmers could no longer count on the alchemist to make them invisible, considered an immediate attack on the farms. But he was a vengeful sort and felt he had been humiliated by these simple farmers. A crafty plan emerged in his mind. What if the Dirennis, who always saw his barbarian tribe coming, for once did not? Imagine the slaughter if no one even had a chance to flee. The scout had told the chieftain that Asliel had used the dust of a vampire to make the farmers invisible, but he was not sure what the other ingredient had been. He described an incandescent power that Azilel had mixed into the dust. Azilel, of course, refused to help the Lokbar, but they were experts in torture as well as pillage, and he knew he would have to talk or die. Finally, after hours of torture, he agreed to tell them what the incandescent power was. He did not know the name, but he called it glow dust, the only remains of a slain will-o'-the-wisp. He told them they will need a lot of it if they wanted to turn the whole tribe invisible for the raid. The Lokbar grumbled that not only did they have to find and kill a vampire to attain his dust, but find and kill several will-o'-wisps to get theirs. In a few days' time, they came back with the ingredients the alchemists asked for. The chieftain, not being a complete idiot, made Azilel taste the poison first. Poison is another thing. He did as he was told and turned invisible, demonstrating that it did truly work. The chieftain put him to work creating more. No one apparently noticed that while he did, he was nibbling on black lichen and rooibrush. The Lokbar took the potion as he doled it out, and soon, not too soon that they didn't suffer, they were all dead. The scout, who had seen Azilel mixing the invisibility potion, had apparently mistook the glow of the candlelight in the laboratory for an incandescence, which the second ingredient of the invisibility potion did not possess. The second ingredient was actually dull, simple redwood, one of the most common herbs in Tamriel. When they had insisted during torture that Azilel told them what the incandescent power was, Azilel remembered that he had once experimentally mixed glow dust and vampire dust together once and created a powerful poison. It was simple enough to steal a little redwood from the barbarian's camp, mix that with a vampire and glow dust mixture, and create a potion that was in fact an invisibility potion. After curing himself, he gave the poison to the barbarians. The Lokbar, being dead, never again raided the Dirennis farms, and having no other enemies, they were able to grow more and more prosperous and powerful. Generations later, they left Somerset and began their historic adventures on the Tamriel mainland. Azilel Dirennis, because of his excellence as an alchemist, was invited to our town and became a Sigil. It is not known how many more of the common formulas we know today were invented by him there, but I have no doubt the science and art of alchemy as we know it today would not exist without him. But that is all in the distant past. Azilel's innovations, like my modest ones, like the achievements of the Dirennis throughout history, are but a stepping stone to the wonders which will come in the future. I wish I could be there to witness them, but if I can only share some of the past with the children of Dirennis and the children of Tamriel, then I will consider my life well spent. That was a good story. I liked it. I liked it a lot. Instead of doing like an autobiography of himself, he was just like, you know what, no, there's people that need to be known. And it's pretty interesting to know about kind of more of the origins of alchemy and stuff. That was pretty interesting. I like that one. Deathbrand. A Pirate's Tale. Yeah, this one I already read. No. The scroll. Yeah. The Adabal-A. Okay. Editor's note. The Adabal-A is traditionally believed to be the memoirs of Orihaus, consort to Alicia the Slave Queen. While this cannot be historically verified, the Adabal-A is certainly among the eldest written accounts to come down to us from the early from the early First Era. Oh god, my voice is not doing great today. Pelinal's death. And in the blood-flowered throne room of white gold, the severed head of Pelinal spoke to the winged bull, Morihaus, demigod lover of Al-Esh, saying, "Our enemies have undone me, and spread my body into hiding, in mockery of divine purpose, and the Aelids cut me into eights, for they are obsessed with this number." And Morihaus, confused, snorted through his ring, saying, "Your crusades went beyond her counsel, White Streak, but I am a bull, and therefore reckless in my wit. I think I would go and gore our prisoners if you had left any alive. You are blood made glorious, uncle, and will come again as fox, animal, or light. Zirod is still ours." Then Pelinal spoke again for the last time. "Beware, Morihaus, beware. With the foresight of death, I know now that my foe yet lives, bitter, knowledge to talk to my grave. Better that I had died believing myself the victor. Although cast beyond the doors of night, he will return. Be vigilant. I can no longer shield a host of men from Umar's retribution." Alessia's youth during the slave years. Perif's original tribe is unknown, but she grew up in Sard, Anon Sardvar Lid, where the Aelids herded in men from across all the Niven. Kothri, Nede, Algemha, men of Graith, though these were later known to be imported from the north. Keptu, men of Ge, who were eventually destroyed when the Flower King Nilichi made great sacrifice to an insect god named Lost. All Harad, men of Gath, others, but this was Zirod, the heart of the Imperatum Saliake, where men knew no freedom, even to keep family, or choice of name except in secret, and so to their alien masters all of these designations were irrelevant. I don't know if the mic can pick that up, but the dogs in my neighborhood are going crazy right now. Never mind. Men were given over to the lifting of stones and the draining of the fields and the upkeep of temple and road, or they become art tortures for strange pleasures, as in the wailing wheels of Vindassel and the cut gardens of Saracen, and flesh sculpture which was everywhere among the slaves of the Aelids. In those days, or worse, the realms of the Fire King had Hul, where the begetting of drugs, drawn from the admixture of Dedrons into living hosts, let one inhale new visions of torment, and children was set aflame for nighttime tiger sport. Morihaus explains Alicia's names. Then Morihaus said to them, "In your tales you have many names for her. Al-Esh, given to her in awe, that when translated sounds like a redundancy, the high, from which come the more familiar corruptions. Al-Eshat, Esha, Alicia. You knew her as Paravant, given to her when crowned, first of its kind, by which the gods meant a mortal worthy of the majesty that is killing questing healing, which is also Parabal, Pedesh, Perethu, Perif, and in my case, for it is what I called her when we were lovers, Paravania. Though she is gone to me, she remains bathed in stars, first Empress, Lady of Heaven, Queen Ut Zirod, and they consider themselves fully answered and departed." Okay, that was interesting read. The anticipations. The Tetra are powerful ancestor spirits, similar in form and substance to the Tribunal, blessed be their holy names, but weaker in power and more arbitrary and removed from the affairs of mortals. In all times, the Chimer worshipped the Dedra as gods, but they did not deserve this veneration, for the Dedra harmed their worshippers as often as helped them. The advent of the tribunal, blessed be their holy names, changed this unhappy state. By the apotheosis, the tribunal, blessed be their holy names, became the protectors and high ancestor spirits of the Dhamma, and bade the Dedra to give proper veneration and obedience. The three god Dedra, Boethia, Asura, and Mephala, recognized the divinity of the triune ancestors, blessed be their holy names. The rebel Dedra, Molakbal, Malakath, Sheogorath, and Merus Dagon refused to swear fealty to the tribunal, and their worshippers were cast out. These rebel Dedra thus became the four corners of the House of Troubles, and they continued to plague our tranquility and tempt the unwary into heresy and dark worship. These priests of the temple remained ever vigilant for signs of the adversary's return, sometimes aided by the loyal three good Dedra, who were familiar with the wiles of their rebellious king. The good Dedra are known to the temple as the Anticipations, since they are the early ancestral anticipations of the loving patronage of the tribunal. The Anticipations are the Dedra lords Boethia, Mephala, and Asura. Boethia is the anticipation of Almalexia, but male to her female. Boethia was the ancestor who illuminated the elves ages ago before the mythic era. He told them the truth of Lorcan's test and defeated Auriel's champion, Trinimac. Boethia ate Trinimac and voided him. The followers of Boethia and Trinimac rubbed the soil of Trinimac upon themselves and changed their skins. Mephala is the anticipation of Vivek, but manifold and androgynous. Mephala taught the Chimer to evade their enemies to kill them with secret murder. Enemies were numerous in those days, since the Chimer were a small with enemies on all sides. Mephala organized the clan systems and eventually became the great houses. Later, Mephala created the Morak tongue. Asura is the anticipation of Sothasil, but female to his male. Asura was the ancestor who taught the Chimer how to be different from the Elder. Her teachings are sometimes attributed to Boethia. In other stories, Asura is often encountered more as a communal progenitor of the race as a whole rather than as an individual ancestor. She is associated with dusk and dawn, and is sometimes called the Mother Soul. Asura's star, also called Twilight Star, appears briefly at dawn and dusk, low on the horizon below the constellation of the Steed. Asura is associated with mystery and magic, fate and prophecy. Always nice to know more about Dunmer culture. The Armorer's Challenge by Mimophonus. 300 years ago, when Candaria became empress, the first and only Dunmer to rule all of Damriel, she faced opposition from the Imperial Council, even after she convinced them that she would be the best regent to rule the empire, while her husband, Pelagius, sought treatment for his madness. Oh, okay. That Pelagius, right? The one at the end of the Wolf Queen books? There was still conflict, in particular from the Duke of Bengetho, Thane Minglumir, who took a particular delight in exposing all of the Empress' lack of practical knowledge. In this particular instance, Kataria and the council were discussing the unrest in Black Marsh and the massacre of Imperial troops outside the village of Armanius. The southern swampland and the sweltering climate, particularly in summertide, would endanger the troops if they wore their usual armor. I know a very clever armorer, said Kataria. His name is Hazadir, an Argonian who knows the environments environments our army will be facing. I knew him in Vivek, where he was a slave to the master armorer there, before he moved to the Imperial City as a free man. We should have him design armor and weaponry for the campaign. Minglumir gave a short, barking laugh. She wants a slave to design the armor and weaponry of our troops. Cyrillus Sacus is the finest armorer in the Imperial City. Everyone knows that. After much debate, it was finally decided to have both armorers contend for the commission. The council also elected 2 champions of equal power and prowess, Nandor Bereid and Raphalas Eol, to battle using the arms and armaments of the real competitors in the struggle. Whichever champion won, the armorer who supplied him would earn the imperial commission. It was decided that Bereid would be outfitted by Hazadir and Eol by Sacus. The fight was scheduled to commence in 7 days. Cyrillus Sacus began work immediately. He would have preferred more time, but he recognized the nature of the test. The situation in Armanias was urgent. The Empire had to select their armorer quickly, and once selected, the preferred armorer had to act swiftly and produce the finest armor and weaponry for the Imperial army in Black Marsh. It wasn't just the best armorer they were looking for, it was the most efficient. Sacus had only begun steaming the half-inch strips of black Persian oak to bend into bands for the flanges and the armor joints when there was a knock on his door. His assistant, Fandius, ushered in the visitor. It was a tall reptilian of common markings, a dull green fringed hood, bright black eyes, and a dull brown cloak. It was Hazadir, Cataria's preferred armorer. I wanted to wish you the best of luck on the... Is that ebony? It was indeed. Sacus had bought the finest quality ebony wave available in the Imperial City as soon as he heard of the competition and had begun the process of smelting it. Normally it was a 6-month procedure refining the ore, but he hoped that a massive convection oven stoked by white flames born of magicka would shorten the operation to 3 days. That's very optimistic. Sacus proudly pointed out the other advancement in his armory, the acidic lime pools to sharpen the blade of the dai katana to an unimaginable degree of sharpness, the akaviri forged and tongs he would use to fold the ebony back and forth upon itself. Hazadir laughed. Have you been to my armory? It's 2 tiny smoke-filled rooms. The front is a shop, the back is filled with broken armor, some hammers and a forge. That's it. That's your competition for the millions of gold pieces in Imperial Commission. I am sure the Empress has some reason to trust you to outfit her troops, said Cyrillus Sacus kindly. He had, after all, seen the shop and knew that what Hazadir said was true. It was a pathetic workshop in the slums, fit only for the lowliest of adventurers to get their iron daggers and cuirasses repaired. Sacus had decided to make the best quality regardless of the inferiority of his rival. It was his way and how he became the best armorer in the Imperial City. Out of kindness, and more than a bit of pride, Sacus showed Hazadir how, by contrast, things should be done in a real professional armory. The Argonian acted as an apprentice to Sacus, helping him refine the ebony ore and to pound it and fold it when it cooled. Over the next... oh god, dying here. Over the next several days, they worked together to create a beautiful dai katana, with an edge honed sharp enough to trim a mosquito's eyebrows, enchanted with flames along its length by one of the Imperial battle mages, as well as a suit of armor of bound wood, leather, silver, and ebony to resist the winds of oblivion. On the day of the battle, Sacus, Hazadir, and Vandius finished polishing the armor and brought in Raphalas Eol for the fitting. Hazadir left only then, realizing that Nandor Bereid would be at his shop shortly to be outfitted. The two warriors met before the Empress and Imperial Council in the arena, which had been flooded slightly to simulate the swampy conditions of Black Marsh. From the moment Saku saw El in his suit of heavy ebony and blazing daikatana and buried in his collection of dusty, rusted lizard scales and spear from Hasadir's shop, he knew who would win. And he was right. The first blow from the daikatana lodged in Bereid's soft shield, as there was no metal rim to deflect it. Before El could pull his sword back, Bereid let go of the now flaming shield, still stuck on the sword, and poked at the joints of El's ebony armor with his spear. El finally retrieved his sword from the ruined shield and slashed at Bereid, but his light armor was scaled and angled, and the attacks rolled off into the water, extinguishing the daikatana's flames. When Bereid stuck at El's feet, he fell into the churned mud and was unable to move. The Empress, out of mercy, called the victor. Hasadir received the commissions, and thanks to his knowledge of Argonian battle tactics and weaponry, and how best to combat them, he designed implements of war that brought down the insurrection of Armenius. Cataria won the respect of council, and even grudgingly that of Thane Minglimir. Cyrillus Sacus went to Morrowind to learn what Hasadir learned there, and was never heard from again. Yeah, he was way too prideful. He was thinking of that as who's the best in like an objective standpoint or view, and completely forgot the fact that they were going to be fighting in mud in a swamp. You should never ever lose sight of the context of what you're doing, because if it's not practical for what you're doing, it's useless. The Art of War Magic by Zurin Arctus, with commentary by other learned masters. Okay. Chapter 3. Dispositions. Master Arctus said, 1. In the moment to prepare your offense is the moment the enemy becomes vulnerable to attack. Let us tell. Knowledge of the enemy's mage mind is of the foremost importance. Once you know his mind, you will know his weakness. Setmar. Master Arctus advised Tarvar Septim before the Battle of Five Bridges not to commit his reserves until the enemy was victorious. Tarvar Septim said, if the enemy is already victorious, what use committing the reserve? To which Master Arctus replied, only in victory will the enemy be vulnerable to defeat. Tarvar Septim went on to rout an enemy army twice the size of his. 2. The enemy's vulnerability may be his strongest point. Your weakness may enable you to strike the decisive blow. Marandro Ur. In the wars between the North and the Chimer, the North shamans invariably use their mastery of the winds to call down storms before battle to confuse and dismay the Chimer warriors. One day, a clever Chimer sorcerer conjured up an ice demon and commanded him to hide in the rocks near the rear of the Chimer army. When the Norths called down the storms as usual, the Chimer warriors began to waver, but the ice demon rose up as the storm struck, and the Chimer turned in fear from what they believed was a Nord demon and charged into the enemy line, less afraid of the storm than the demon. The Norths, expecting the Chimer to flee as usual, were caught off guard when the Chimer attacked out of the midst of the storm. The Chimer were victorious that day. 3. When planning a campaign, take account of both the arcane and the mundane. The skillful battle mage ensures that they are in balance. A weight lifted by one hand is heavier than two weights lifted by both hands. When the arcane and mundane are in balance, the army will move effortlessly, like a swing door on well-oiled hinges. When they are out of balance, the army will be like a three-legged dog, with one leg always dragging in the dust. 5. Thus, when the army strikes a blow, it will be like a thunderclap out of a cloudless sky. The best victories are those unforeseen by the enemy, but obvious to everyone afterwards. 6. The skillful battle mage ensues that the enemy is already defeated before the battle begins. A close-fought battle is to be avoided. The fortunes of war may turn aside the most powerful sorcery. The encouraged may undo the best laid plans. Instead, win your victory ahead of time. When the enemy knows he is defeated, before the battle begins, you may not need to fight. Victory in battle is 7. Victory in battle is only the least kind of victory. Victory without battle is the acme of skill. 8. Conserving your power is another key to victory. Putting forth your strength to win a battle is no demonstration of skill. This is what we call tactics, the least form of the art of war magic. Thulidan Dir Tharkan. By tactics, Master Arctus includes that all common battle magics. These are only the first steps in an understanding of war magic. Any hedge mage can burn up his enemies with fire. Destroying the enemy is the last resort of the skillful battle mage. 9. The battle is only a leaf on the tree. If a leaf falls, does the tree die? But when a branch is lopped off, the tree is weakened. When the trunk is girdled, the tree is doomed. 10. If you plan your dispositions well, your victories will seem easy and you will win no acclaim. If you plan your dispositions poorly, your victories will seem difficult, and your fame will be widespread. Barandrosul. Those commonly believed to be the greatest practitioners of war magic are almost always those with the least skill. The true masters are not known to the multitude. True, that is true. The Cake and the Diamond by Athin Muendel. I was in the Rat and the Pot, a foreigner corner club in Al-Run, talking to my fellow rats when I first saw the woman. Now Breton women are fairly common in the Rat and the Pot. As a breed, they seem inclined to wander far from the perches in High Rock. All Breton women, however, are not so migratory, and the wizened old biddy drew attention to herself, wandering about the room, talking to everyone. Nimloth and Oediath were at their usual places, drinking their usual stuff. Oediath was showing off a prize he had picked up in some illicit manner, a colossal diamond, large as a baby's hand, and clear as spring water. I was admiring it when I heard the cracking of old bones behind me. "Good day to you, my friends," said the old woman. "My name is Adabal-A, and I am in need of financial assistance to facilitate my transportation to Redania." "You'll want to see the temple for charity," said Nimloth curtly. "I am not looking for charity," said Abel. "I'm looking for barter services." "Don't make me sick, old woman," laughed Oedia. "Did you say your name was Adabal-A?" I asked. "Are you related to Adabal-A, the High Rock alchemist?" "Closely related," she said with a cackle. "We are the same person. Perhaps I could prepare you a potion in exchange for gold. I noticed that you have in your possession a very fine diamond. The magical qualities of diamonds are boundless." "Sorry, old woman, I ain't giving it up for magic. It was trouble enough stealing this one," said Oedia. "I have got a fence who will trade it for gold." "But your fence will demand a certain percentage, will he not? What if I could give you a potion of invisibility in exchange? In return for that diamond, you could have the means to steal many more. A very fair exchange of services, I would say." "It would be, but I have no gold to give you," said Oedia. "I'll take what remains of the diamond after I've made the potion," said Abel. "If you took it to the Mages Guild, you'll have to supply all the other ingredients and pay for it as well. But I learned my craft in the wild, where no potion potion makers existed to dissolve diamonds into dust. When you must do it all by hand, by simple skill, you are blessed with remnants those full potion makers at the guild simply swallow up. That sounds all very nice, said Nimloth. But how do we know your potion is going to work? If you make one potion, take the rest of Oedia's diamond and leave. We won't know until you have gone whether the potion works or not. Ah, trust is so rare these days, sighed Adabal. I suppose I could make 2 potions for you, and there would still be a little bit of the diamond left for me. Not a lot, but perhaps enough to get me to Redania. Then you could try the first potion right here and now and see if you're satisfied or not. But, I interjected, you could make one potion that works and one that doesn't, and make more of the diamond, and take more of the diamond. She could even give you a slow-acting poison, and by the time she got to Redania, you would be dead. Bleeding Kinnereth, you Dunmera suspicious. I will hardly have any diamond left, but I could make 2 potions of 2 doses each, so you can satisfy yourself that the potion works and have no negative effects. If you still don't trust me, come along with me to my table and witness my craft if you would like. So it was decided that I would accompany Adele back to her table where she had all the traveling bags full of herbs and minerals to make certain that she was not making 2 different potions. It took nearly an hour of preparation, but she kindly allowed me to finish her half-filled flagon of wine while I watched her work. Splintering the diamond and powering the pieces required the bulk of the time. Over and over again she waved her gnarled hands over the gem, intoning ancient enchantments, breaking the facets of the stone into smaller and smaller pieces. Separately she made pastes of minced bittergreen, crushed red bulbs of del arco spey, and driblets of Siciliani oil. I finished the wine. Old woman, I finally said with a sigh, how much longer is this going to take? I'm getting tired of watching you work. The Mage's Guild has fooled the populace into thinking alchemy is a science, she said. But if you're tired, rest your eyes. My eyes closed, seemingly of their own volition, but there had been something in the wine, something that made me do what she asked. I think I'll make up the potion as cakes. It's much more potent that way. Now, tell me, young man, what will your friends do once I give them the potion? Mug you in the street afterwards to retrieve the rest of the diamond, I said simply. I didn't want to tell the truth, but there it was. I thought so, but I wanted to be certain. You may open your eyes now. I opened my eyes. Abel had made a small presentation on a wooden platter, 2 small cakes, and a silver cutting knife. Pick up the cakes and bring them to the table, said Abel, and don't say anything, except to agree with whatever I said. I did as I was told. I was a curious sensation. I didn't really mind being her puppet. Of course, in retrospect, I resented, but it seemed perfectly natural at the time to obey without a question. Abel handed the cakes to Oediath, and I dutifully verified that both cakes were made the same way. She suggested that he cut one of the cakes in half, and she would take one piece, and he would take the other, just so he would know that they worked and weren't poisoned. Oediath thought it was a good idea, and used Abel's knife to cut the cake. Abel took the piece on the left and popped it to her mouth. Oediath took the piece on the right and swallowed it more cautiously. Abel and all the bags she was carrying vanished from sight almost instantly. Nothing happened to Oediath. Why did it work for the witch and not for me? Cried Oediath. Because the diamond dust was only for the left-hand side of the blade, said the old alchemist through me. I felt her control lessening as the distance grew and she hurried invisibly down dark Aldrune's street, away from the rat and the pot. We never found Abel, Chiridet, or the diamond. Whether she completed her pilgrimage to Redania is anyone's guess. The cakes had no effect. except to give Oediath a bad case of drops that lasted for nearly a week. That was fun. That was really good. She played them so well. Oh god. And that is why you should not try to get yourself out of a trade that you just made. I doubt she would have done that if they were not planning to rob her afterwards. Or maybe she did. I don't know her personally, but good for her. That was really a good book. Thank you, Chris, for recommending that. That was great. Okay, so the 5 far stars. This is a volume of verse collected from wise women of the Urshilaku Ashlanders. It consists of verses exposed by Ashlander warriors, champions, and Ashcans, committed to memory by the wise woman and transmitted down the generations. May I Shrink to Dust is attributed to the long-dead poet and warrior Sirsishi Musbanu. Rise from the darkness, Red Mountain. Spread your dark clouds and green vipers. Birth earthquakes. Shatter stones. Feed the winds with fire. Flay the tents of the tribes from the land. Feed the burnt earth with our souls. Yet never shall you have your rule over me. Never shall I tremble or flinch from your power. Never shall I yield my home and hearth. And from my tears shall spring forth the flowers of grassland springs. Nice little short book.